Good evening, folks, and welcome to another episode of the Baseball Bums. I'm Benny Scala, aka The Playa. Now, you may know me from that award-winning adult film, The Count of Monte Fisting. And we may be bums, but I am joined.
Spit my cigarette out.
I'm joined by the bon vivant of Ball Metrics, the great Jimmy Pharaoh. Jimmy, how are you?
I'm a what? What was that?
The bon vivant of Bumble Metrics.
What does bon vivant mean? What does that mean?
A bon vivant is somebody who enjoys life.
Oh,
You enjoy baseball.
I enjoy baseball. That's true.
Yeah, so
when I hear bone in something, I start to get a little nervous. Considering your adult film career and stuff, I'm always weary.
Bon, like BON, as in well.
Oh,
bonjour,
like bonbons. Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay, I got
yeah.
you.
Well,
Right.
Jimmy, we're going to take a temporary break from Bumble Metrics, and we're going to cover a subject that's been talked about since the beginning of baseball time, which is epic baseball blunders. We're going to talk about the dumb sale of players, even dumber trades, and the dumbest draft picks. And as every female porn star said, there's plenty of meat on that bone. Now, that one's intense.
There we go back to bone.
Oh, are you ready to go?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, here, right off the bat, here we go. All right, no blunder could possibly eclipse this one. On December 26, 1919, the New York Yankees acquired the contract of George Herman Ruth from the Boston Red Sox for the sum of, and it's kind of debated, either $100,000, somewhere between $100,000 and $125,000. Harry Frazee, the Red Sox owner, needed cash to finance a Broadway musical called No No Nanette. Well, no more Nanette turned into no more Penance, and the Curse of the Bambino was born. From 1923 until 2003, the Yankees win 26 World Championships, while the Red Sox win God's Own Ghoul. That one worked out pretty well, didn't it? For us.
You know what's amazing about it, and it was a bit of a myth back in the day. At least it's been clarified much more now. That the Yankees were the ones that figured out that Babe Ruth could hit the way he could. That's actually what makes this transaction even more preposterous. Is that the Red Sox are the ones that did figure out that he should hit a lot more, and he hit 29 home runs for them in 1919. So and that was an ungodly number. The previous record was a home run Baker with, I think, 14. So 20 to double it. They already knew what they had. They had a guy who had won the World Series as a pitcher, and then they knew he could hit, and they still sold him. Now, another thing that back in the day we really didn't discuss much, but I discovered that there was talks between the Red Sox and the Yankees about players for Ruth, but they came to the conclusion, the Red Sox owner, that he would basically have to get their whole team. So instead,
Yes.
just give me money. And so there was that conversation. It did happen, because you think to yourself, God, they just bought him. Now, of course, years later, when Charlie Finley would try to sell Vita Blue to George Steinbrenner, you couldn't do this. So it's interesting that that's how this was done in 1920, that they actually said, well, you'd probably have to give me your whole team. So how's 100 grand sound, or 125, whatever it was, either way, for a play, so I can finance a play. It's funny how we start with the biggest blunder in history as far as the subject goes, but this is the biggest blunder in history. 26 championships for the Yankees and none for the Red Sox for all those years. And it's hilarious. Yes, the Red Sox have had a wonderful turn of the century and stuff since they finally broke the curse, but to talk shit doesn't change the full scope of things. You went from 4 championships to now a grand total of 8. Congratulations. You're still 19 behind. I mean, look what this trade did, Penny. Whoops.
I mean, they were, believe it or not, they were ahead 5-0 when they got Ruth.
Right.
And
so I guess they have 9 titles then, just to clarify, right? I would say they were.
I think it's 9.
Okay.
It's 20. Yeah, so, they were 5-0. Then we were 26-0, and now they're 4-1 in the last 20 years.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
they'll never. In our lifetime, they'll never.
Nobody's going to do that over the next course of it. Probably a good half a century to 80 years if somebody was to somehow do it, and I don't even see it. There's a lot of balance nowadays. Dynasties don't really truly occur the way they did. That's what made the Tory dynasty so special, because dynasties occurred much differently for the most part, pre-free agency. Now if you won two in a row, you're a dynasty. Post free
I'm,
agency,
I'm
pretty
looking to
much.
see what he did. So in 1919, he played in 130 games,
Yeah.
uh, and he was
How many
29 homers, 113 ribbies,
how many at bats did he get?
322.
How many at bats did he get?
Actual at bats because he walked 100. Wait, no, he walked 101 times, which for them is
Yeah.
a lot.
So he had been
Yeah,
basically converted to a full-time outfielder.
right. But then, yeah, and he was 9-5 as a pitcher. His on base percentage.
Oh,
So
sure.
he led the league in on base percentage, slugging. Oh, on
Mm-hmm.
base plus slugging. He led in home runs, RBIs. He almost won the Triple Crown his first year as a
Right.
full time player.
Right. I mean, people don't seem to understand what a freak of nature Babe Ruth was because listen to the way all these things you read. He was the best at everything. It wasn't just that he could put a ball over a fence. Agreed?
No,
It was all
no.
these other things that he could do. And physically, you'd look at him and go, how? There were plenty of studly physiques back in his prime. You ever look at Lou Gehrig? Really look at Lou Gehrig, his
Lou Gehrig
shoulders and
was
his forearms.
built like a brick
Oh,
shithouse.
I
Yeah.
mean, come on. There were plenty of them. There were plenty of magnificent athletes in those days. That's why I scoff at
Ruth was built
oh,
like kind of like Fabulous Moolah, right? Like a bag of
I,
potatoes.
I, that is rough, Benny. Wow. I was going to say much more along the lines of Samoa Joe.
Yeah, maybe
Like
that's fair. That's more fair. I was a bit harsh. I
I mean,
apologize.
Fabulous Moolah, and let it not be lost real quickly. Fabulous Moolah is Samoa Joe times 10 in the history of what she did as a women's wrestling champion. However, though, physically, I looked at him like, and in the beginning, he wasn't Samoa Joe. He was Sting. He was built. It's funny how we're using wrestling analogies. Forgive us, folks, for those who tune in for baseball
Old
analogies.
habits die
Uh,
hard.
yeah, it's true. It's very true. Both great, long-standing sports for over 100 years. If you look at both of them, it's just the physique of Babe in the beginning was actually pretty damn impressive. He was in
No,
good shape.
he
You
was
know,
slender. I mean,
he
yeah.
was he was slender. Listen, the guy was powerful. It's the bottom line, and he was just a natural at everything he did. Uh, this trade changed history. The Yankees were the third team in New York. The Yankees very well likely would have been the team to wind up in San Francisco one day or Los Angeles. But then when Babe Ruth came to the Yankees, he's the reason why they started winning pennants. He's the reason why they built the stadium. They built
The
Yankee
house that Ruth
Stadium
built,
because of
correct?
the profits they were
Yep.
making. They became the most popular team in town before the stadium was built because that's how the money got there. It got there through the support of the Yankees, through Babe Ruth being there. The fans, all of a
Right.
sudden, the Yankees were number one. They build Yankee Stadium, and in the first year they open it, who hits the first home run in the stadium? You can't write these scripts any better. Babe hits the first home run at the stadium. They win a World Series that year after falling short to, I think, the Giants of all people. The New York Giants in 21 and 22, they lost to them in a World. John McGraw never wanted the Yankees to exist. I'm sure you're aware of that, right? He
Yeah,
hated the
yeah.
Yankees. He did everything he could to squash the Yankees. Everything he could. That was another reaction to Yankee Stadium being built was the fact that McGraw was trying to kick them out of the Polo Grounds. Correct?
Yeah, yeah. Let me ask you a question. Do you think if Ruth concentrated on pitching,
Yeah.
you think he would have made it in the Hall of Fame as a pitcher?
Of course he would have. He already was. He was already well on his way when you
I mean,
look at it, though.
he was definitely on a Hall of Fame trajectory as a pitcher.
Listen, even in those days, let's say Babe Ruth winds up 145 and 39 or something like that with a whatever ERA and still decides to hit. You know what I mean? Like, what if he had thrown more pitching into his career? Guess what? He's a Hall of Fame pitcher for the time period and a Hall of Fame hitter. That's what he was. The fact that he turned out to be the Sultan of SWAT, the Bambino, the guy that could hit home runs like no one had ever seen before, something had to fall to the wayside, and it was pitching in this case. And you know what? It's a tough decision to make, but it was the right decision to make. And anytime he was asked to pitch, you know about the few times he was asked to pitch as a Yankee. I think he was asked 5 times
Five
as a
times.
Yankee,
Yep.
and he won all 5 games. So
Yep.
what are you saying? What are we saying about the greatest natural that ever played this game? And his steroids was hot dogs, beer, and playing stickball with the kids on a walk home after a game.
Right. and
What?
his cardio was women.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And what an absolute albatross to have hanging on your franchise's neck for decades and decades. The great Ted Williams never saw a ring. The great Carl Yastrzemski never saw a ring. The great Jim Rice never saw a ring. You know, awful trade, man. Just awful. It's the
Our
worst one in history.
Oh
The
yeah,
best example of a botch.
our buddy Jason in the chat room is asking. He said, didn't he have 17 wins in a season? Ruth, actually, I'm going to real quick read his pitching
Please,
line.
sure.
Yeah, so he's 2-1, then he's 18-8, 23-12,
Uh-huh.
24-13, 13-7, 9-5. And that's it with that 9-5 season when he hit 29 homers, drove in 112 runs. As he's only a part-time pitcher. And then 5-0 with the Yankees, lifetime record 94-46, 671 is one of the best winning percentages in the history of baseball. An ERA of 2.20, and he threw 17 shutouts.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if he had just concentrated on when did he retire? 1935 or so, when he plays with the Boston Braves for that one season.
It was 35.
You know, I mean, if he concentrates on pitching, there's no reason why he doesn't have He's already, to me, what you just read, on top of everything he did, what you just read clearly indicates he's a Hall of Fame pace as a pitcher.
Right.
But he obviously was, though. I mean, how many rings did he win as a pitcher with them? 3? I don't know. I think 3. I'm not sure.
That sounds
but I know
about
that
right.
Babe won. Yeah, I think Babe won multiple championships being an ace. Look, once you start hitting the way he did, come on. Let's put me, you, and Jay in the chat in the dugout, and we're watching him, and we know he's the best pitcher. But he starts hitting like that. Come on, I know I'm going to turn to you guys and be like, and we're only using him once every 4th day. You know, no. Get out there, get out there. You know, it had to fall to the wayside the way he
what
hit.
Kills me is just, and I've really done a good job of staying out of arguments on Facebook and social media, but it kills me when somebody says, "Well, he was playing against farmers," and it's like, okay, so if that's the case, then why didn't everybody do that?
Well, it's just another classic ignorant statement that I usually blow up over every week we do this.
Right. I don't think Walter Johnson is a farmer. I don't think Grover Cleveland Alexander or
what?
Joe
Even if they were farmers, so what? At least in those days, farmers were considered and respected and valued much higher than they are today. You know, I think a farmer is an exquisite example of a great American. You know,
who's got a better work ethic?
Yeah, nobody. Wasn't it? Well, very few. How about that? John Cougar Mellencamp with Scarecrow, like some of the songs that he wrote about farmers and what they go through and what they give to the country, and more importantly, what they used to give to the country, playing with farmers. I mean, for God's sakes, Field of Dreams, where's it played? In a cornfield. Well, who do you think takes care of that cornfield? A farmer.
That's right. Right, Kinsella. Until he plowed it under.
Yeah. I am one last thing about the whole Ruth Red Sox and everything else. One last thing. I am very, very glad. I'm very glad, though, that Fenway Park still stands today. Because only Fenway and Wrigley still stand today. And that's very sad, but at least they're still there. Fenway Park's a wonderful park to go to. I'll say that much.
Right. No, I totally agree. I have never been. It is definitely on my bucket list to go. I have to see a game there and a game at Wrigley, as you know.
Yeah, I've never been to Wrigley. That's a bucket list thing that probably will never happen. But hey, I saw Fenway.
You never know. Never know. All right, we are going to fast forward to December 9th, 1965, in an epic boner that would normally be seen in a John Holmes movie.
There's that
the Cincinnati Reds deal 30-year-old former MVP Frank Robinson to the Baltimore Orioles with starting pitcher Milt Pappas, reliever Jack Balchin, and outfield prospect Dick Simpson. I think they threw in like office supplies as well. Reds management thought that at 30 years old, Robinson was past his prime.
Yeah, this is a giant whoopsie. Pappas helped them win a World Series, right? Or no?
No, no, the Reds.
Oh, he didn't. Oh, so what year is this again? 65. There you go. So the next year, Robinson
No,
contributed to the World Championship. There you go.
right. No, and Pappas was
Whoops.
not a bad pitcher though. Pappas
No, I
actually
don't.
he won 209 games and he
That's what
threw
I.
40,
Yeah.
43 shutouts. Not bad.
Yeah, I guess I was wondering if he had ever returned back to them because the Orioles won in 66 and 70. For some reason, I associated him, and I guess I would be correct in associating him with successful Orioles teams. So he was obviously part of the Orioles that were rising up in 65 into what was going to happen. But
Correct.
it probably wasn't going to happen without this trade we're talking about right here.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Yeah. Yeah. Now Pappas was 30 and 29 for the Orioles, and I think 3 or 4 seasons. And
Right.
what did Robinson leads him to 4 pennants and 2 World Series.
So here's the question. Since you are the stat master, please tell me the kind of seasons that Frank Robinson was having up to the age of 30 as a Red. Because when you look back on Frank Robinson, the first thing I always think of is Frank Robinson, the Baltimore Oriole. So what was Frank Robinson busy doing, it's probably phenomenal, in a Reds uniform during his time with the Cincinnati Reds?
Well, Frank Robinson played 10 years with the Reds. Of course, he won the MVP in 1961, which is the year they won the World Series.
Well, they got to the World Series. They lost to Mandel.
Yeah, they won the National League pennant.
Right, correct.
Yeah,
so he's got an MVP. Right. He gets them to a World Series.
He was 37. Yeah. Yeah, and consistently, he was Rookie of the Year in 56. 38 homers, 83 ribbies in his rookie year at 20 years old. So his line with the Reds total, he hit in 10 years, 324 homers, 1,009 ribbies. So his average line is 32,100 and a 303 batting average.
He's 32,100 with a 300 plus batting average
every year.
Wow,
303.
So they really goofed up.
And and now 65 was the. These people had to be on dope because he was 33, 113, and 296. That's a great season.
Why was he traded? Did he have a disagreement with management? Did something happen? Why would you do this trade?
They, according to what I understand, they said he was an old 30, and they thought that he was pretty much his value had expended, and they wanted to get something for him before they couldn't.
He had just knocked in 113 runs.
Right. And
wow.
He hit 3. Yeah.
I'm baffled. That's a horrible trade. Oddly enough, the Reds, didn't go into like, a 50-year funk. I mean, they were 10 years away from the big red machine, correct?
Yeah.
And don't they go to a World Series earlier than that? Didn't the Reds lose a World Series earlier than that in the 70s? Or am I mistaken?
I'm not sure. Maybe.
I feel like they did get to one other World Series in the 70s besides 75 and 76. Is there any way to confirm that? Because I could be losing my mind. Live on the air, folks. It's live TV.
Right.
But I feel like they lost one in the early 70s.
Let me real quick.
They might have lost it to Brooks Robinson and the Orioles in 70.
In what years in 1970s did the Reds make it to the World Series?
Oh, you got to ask that thing? Is it Alexis or whatever her name is?
I don't know.
Don't curse at it. It won't know how to answer you.
No, mine's name is Gladys.
Gladys?
Yeah.
That's great.
I don't know. No, you're right, Jim. In 1970, they did make it there. Yeah.
So Brooks, okay. Yeah, I was just curious. So oddly enough, this trade, as awful as it is, and it's awful, it's an awful trade. Both teams found success shortly thereafter, one way or the other, and ultimately within the next 10 years, there was championships for both. Isn't that weird, Benny?
Yeah, now keep in mind though, like Robinson was the heart and soul of that team for. I mean, many.
Oh, it's an awful trade, but I find it ironic that the Reds wound up. Listen, after this trade, over the course of the next 10 seasons or so, the Orioles win 3 pennants and 2 championships, and the Reds win 3 pennants and 2 championships. That's all I'm pointing out. I find that weird.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? as far as the trade goes, oh, you are one dumb fuck.
Right.
What are
Thank
you
you. Thank you.
doing?
Speaking of
Terrible,
one
man.
dumb, speaking of ODF, it was
Yeah.
ODB was what one dirty broad. ODF is one dumb fuck.
OTB.
All right, here we go. So this isn't a trade, but like that asshole Conan says, let us speak on this. So on June 7th, 1966, the
Oh,
New
no
York
way.
Mets, the Oil of Olay, right?
Yeah.
The New York Mets selecting first in the 1966 Major League Baseball draft take Steve Chilcott, a 17-year-old catcher and high school senior at Antelope Valley High School in Lancaster, California. The Kansas City Athletics, holding the second pick, selected Reginald Martinez Jackson, a 20-year-old from Arizona State. Are there even words to describe this one?
Yeah. Antelope Valley High School. Is that where
Right,
you said that this kid came from? Is that where you said he
Antelope
came from?
Valley. Yeah, you don't make this shit
Antelope
up.
Valley. We're not going to take Reggie Jackson. We're going to take the kid from Antelope Valley High School. Well, I guess you get what you get. Whoops. Wow,
Yeah.
what a giant whoops. Reggie Jackson was, here's another guy that like morphed into like, Goldberg basically, because when he was first around, he wasn't as thick and put together as he was
No,
later
look. I
on,
mean,
but he
look at the
was
picture. The Yankees swing on the right, and then the one it's kind
right.
of cropped, but that's an Arizona State picture, kind of like Bonds almost, but not the way Bonds did it. I mean, he just grew into his physique.
Yeah, he just got a lot bigger. But Reggie was good at all sports too. Reggie was a high school prodigy. I think Reggie could have been like, could have played anything.
I
Probably.
think
I
I
think
heard that Reggie was a phenomenal high school pitcher, and I don't doubt that.
I believe it. You know what's
Yeah,
funny? People always trash Reggie's defense, and of course Billy Martin had his issues with Reggie's lack of hustle. I always found Reggie to be a very serviceable outfielder, and I think the thing he doesn't get credit for is he had a pretty good arm, from what I remember. I don't
Reggie
remember
had
too many.
a very strong arm, and he was not a bad outfielder at all. Yeah, maybe like you
Yeah,
said, maybe occasionally he didn't hustle as much, but come on,
right.
this is Reggie Jackson. Holy shit!
Yeah, Reggie had a really good arm. I don't ever remember saying to myself he's a liability out there. Billy was on his ass from day one. It was just one of those things, like when Billy told him to bunt and all that other crap. They obviously philosophically had a huge cavern between each other that way. This is a joke. And doesn't Reggie go on in '73 to like win the World Series MVP against the Mets?
I believe so. And Chilcott never made it past Double A ball. That was I think he hurt his shoulder, and that was it. But here's food for thought though. If the Mets had drafted Reggie,
Yeah.
I think they still win in 1969. I don't know if they're really the Miracle Mets anymore because with a guy like Reggie in the lineup, you
No,
kind of
no.
expect to win. But
Yeah.
then, I mean, they had that year, and then '73 when they made it to the World Series, lost to Oakland.
Right.
I think there's a couple more pennants in between with Reggie in the lineup.
Let me tell you about the what ifs with the New York Mets in the late 1960s. Sure, we got the Miracle Mets and it's wonderful, and we got Tom Seaver. But when you reveal on this program that Reggie Jackson could have been selected and wasn't, and when you realize as we get to a further blunder what they did with a closer named Ryan, if you figure out what the Mets could have done instead, if you insert Reggie Jackson into that lineup in the late 60s, now keep in mind you're not giving up anybody for him. You got Cleon Jones next to him hitting 340 that year, and you got who was the guy? Was it Agee? The
Hey,
amazing
Tommy Agee,
catches
yeah.
going. You got all this shit going on out there. Everything's great. Then you got that kid Ryan. You might figure out he's a starter, meaning Nolan, and you got everything changes because the '69 Mets, as you said, are no longer a miracle Mets, and there's a good chance over the next bunch of years if they figured out those two things, Reggie Jackson and Nolan Ryan, to go with Tom Seaver, to go with all that defense that they played. Bud Harrelson was almost like a Mark Belanger type, all-star level shortstop for how many years? There was other things on that team. There was Kuzman. His number's retired. So if you put those guys with them, you could have been looking at a Mets dynasty in the late '60s, early '70s. How about them apples in the Big
We're going
Apple?
to talk about Seaver being traded, and we're going to talk about Ryan being traded. But
Sure.
here's some more food for thought.
Yeah.
Seaver, Kuzman, and Ryan together in their careers won over 850 games. That's mind-boggling.
And
I
don't
mean,
forget, And don't forget, with those three, who's closing your games? Tug McGraw, who went on
Right.
later to do it with the Phillies. The guy
Right.
was the winner. You know what I mean? Like, if you've got all of that going on, and oh, by the way, your manager's Yogi Berra. By the way, you know what I'm saying? Who knows
Right.
what could have happened with that? That is a big near miss. Just like the '86 team, there should have been more titles there too. You know, the Mets have given some special moments to the history of this game with the '69 team and that crazy '86 team, but there could have been so much more.
They were classic underachievers for a couple of years after '86. I mean,
Right. Really sad. '88 should have been the year. Should have been.
Yeah.
Should have been the year, and it
Yeah.
wasn't. Yep, this is a massive buffoonery mistake right here.
Well,
Reggie Jackson is the
we're not-
greatest clutch player in the history of you and I watching baseball. You realize that, right?
Yep. So
The greatest.
speak of the devil, and speaking of Nolan Ryan, here we go.
Yep, there he is. Whoops.
Yeah, December 10th, 1971. The Mets send Nolan Ryan, outfielder Leroy Stanton, pitcher Don Rose, and catcher for Francisco Estrada to the California Angels for third baseman Jim Fregosi. Now, after the trade, Ryan wins 295 games and throws 7 no-hitters. Fregosi hit 233 in 2 seasons for the Mets, 5 homers and 43 ribbies. Even one of the throw-ins, Leroy Stanton, in 75, he had a 1482 and 261. So even the throw-ins do better than this.
I remember Leroy Stanton. I actually do. When I was reading the script before the show, I was like, wait a minute. That guy had a season. You know, he had one. But, yeah, this so far is the worst trade that we've discussed so far. At least in the Boston Red Sox owner's case, he got $100 and something thousand in his pocket, and that equates to what today, Benny? He got something. They got Jim Fregosi.
About $1.5 million, maybe. I got to do the calculation.
He got this. With this, you lost out on a Hall of Famer who threw 7 no-hitters and struck out over 5,000 men, which nobody, you know, come on, it's ridiculous. And you got this guy with the 233 batting average that disappeared. And the what-ifs that we just discussed, like what if they had been smart enough to know to draft Reggie? What if they've been smart enough to realize Nolan Ryan is a starter? You know, how could they not tell? Did he have arm problems ever? The guy was a machine.
No, Ryan. I don't think Ryan ever went on the DL, and he pitched in 26 seasons.
Yeah, something like over a quarter of a century or around a quarter of a century. It's absurd. And this isn't a Ryan Duran. Like, we had a blazing fastballer in the early '60s who had glasses. He's probably Wild Thing from the Major League, but he had no control. This guy had control. It's like, how do you not know what you have? I'm amazed.
He was a little bit on the wild side. But this is staggering. At the age of 42, he's 16-10 with 301 strikeouts in 239 innings. I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, 42 as a power pitcher.
Yeah. Well,
who else? I guess maybe Randy Johnson and maybe Clemens.
Yeah, Johnson and Clemens.
Or you know, could still but it's
throw that hard.
It's a very short list.
Yeah, very, very short.
Yeah.
Most pitchers that hang around forever are not fastballers. They're not, they're not that. Well, then again, like you just said, who the hell is that? Let me tell you, when it comes to Nolan Ryan, who the hell is in the conversation with Nolan Ryan outside of the guys you named? Randy Johnson's in the conversation. Roger Clemens is in the conversation. Walter Johnson is in the conversation. Okay, but who else is walking into that fireballer with the numbers from the above the penthouse, the top of the needle of the Empire State Building? These numbers are so absurd. Who else exists in that? Well, this is the worst freaking trade we're probably going to come across on this show. This is horrible.
Plus, he was 1-0 in baseball fights. I mean, TKO'd Ryan Ventura, right?
That was a really, really bad. I mean, would you fight Kevin Costner if he really is the character he plays on Yellowstone? What are you doing running at John Dutton? I mean, seriously, what are you thinking? What are you thinking? Like, what are you going to do to him? He rustled in Robin Ventura like cattle. Did you see that?
Yeah.
That was like cattle.
Side headlock and a few, a couple of knocks.
And he's got all the other cows jumping up and down around him. And what's he doing? He's just like, giddy up, giddy up, giddy up, giddy up, giddy up. How many times did he pound him in the noggin? I was like, oh my God, bad idea, Robin. Very bad, very bad.
Yeah, yeah. I would say this is one of the. We'll lay off the Mets for a little bit. So let's see what we got here. Oh, this is a pretty. This
Oh,
is June 15th, 1964. So going back in time a little bit, the St.
sure.
Louis Cardinals traded pitcher Ernie Broglio and
Uh-huh.
Bobby Shantz to the Chicago Cubs for Lou Brock and Paul Toth, Toth. So Broglio, yeah, I think the best thing about Broglio is his name rhymes with Cornholio, but he went 7-19 with a
Oh,
5.40 ERA for the
wow.
Cubs. He's out of baseball by 66. Bobby Shantz pitches 11 innings for the Cubs. He's out of baseball by the end of 64. And then on the flip side, Toth never pitched for the Cardinals or the big leagues. Now, Brock, 16 seasons for the Cardinals, 2,713 hits, 888 stolen bases, 2 world championships, and a plaque in Cooperstown.
Whoops. Yeah.
It's kind of weird seeing Lou Brock with that Cubs hat on, isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit. And you wonder why the Cubs. It's funny. So far, we've covered teams that have a problem winning titles over in the big picture overall. The Mets have had problems. How many years have they been around now, Benny? Over 60, correct? They've got two titles.
60, the 64th season.
Right. They've got two championships. So twice in 64 times. If you're a 64-year-old man, you'll be lucky to see a team win twice. That's awful. The Red
No,
Sox with
and
that
if you
giant
think
team.
about it, even with the 16 teams in the league,
Yeah.
I mean, you should be winning,
Yeah.
maybe every
Yes.
16 years.
Yes, yes, and when you have Ted Williams and Carl Yastrzemski and Jim Rice, and yeah, you should be winning something. 86 years with the Red Sox with their whoops, and now we get to the Cubs, and we all know about the Cubs this season.
106 years or whatever it was.
Oh my God! Until Aroldis Chapman, we let him go over there for a few weeks before we got him back the following season, and he helped them win a title. Made them nervous, but he helped them win the championship finally. Like you said, 100+ years. It's just another boneheaded move by the Cubs. Lou Brock would have made a great Cub. I don't even know if Lou Brock winds up with championships, though, if he stays there, because, the Cubs could never get out of their own way.
Yeah.
Cornholio, wow. You know what? He's even less than Fregosi. So, I mean, as far as at least Fregosi was previously an all-star, right? Cornholio never accomplished anything, I'm assuming.
I think he did have one 20-game season, but that was pretty
Oh,
much it.
okay. So,
Yeah,
Cornholio had one good year. All right. All
one
right.
good
It
year.
still makes
It was a flash in the pan, but
Still makes
yeah,
it worse than Fregosi, as far as Fregosi, I think, was a multiple-time All-Star before the trade, at least,
Fregosi
right?
was a very good ball player for the Angels.
Right. Did they just get him when he was old, Fregosi? Is that the
He
case?
was 29. I mean, really, is that old? Maybe he was an old 29, like
I
Frank
guess
Robinson
so.
being old 30.
Right. I guess so. By the way, did you stop to think for a second about what if Frank Robinson had remained a Red and instead of Cesar Geronimo, he's out there?
Oh, geez, that's scary.
Do you realize what that outfield is now? It's George Forster, Frank Robinson, and Ken Griffey Sr.
Oh, my God.
And
Yeah.
it's already the big red machine without Frank's bat, by the way. So think about that for a while.
Yeah, that is actually scary.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah. Lou Brock, it's a shame, too. By the way, did you notice Lou Brock falls into the he's open season. I see him get criticized. People write and say stuff that clearly never saw him play or remember him or anything. It's just Facebook trolling. But Lou Brock gets some shit. And, he really wasn't that good. He's just a compiler, this, that, and the other thing. Listen, Benny, you lived through Lou Brock's career. I saw the later years of Lou Brock, but I always knew that Lou Brock, before Ricky Henderson, was the fastest man to ever play the game. True or false? True. He was
Yeah.
the fastest man to ever play the game. He had the most stolen bases in the history of this business. And he was a 3,000 hit guy, and he was a great high average hitter, and he was a champion. So when I see people trolling Lou Brock, I'm like, what do you got to do to get somebody to lay off stupidity and ignorance? Like, what do you need to accomplish? Because Lou Brock accomplished everything, and this is a horrendous trade that the second most successful franchise, oddly enough, in the history of Major League Baseball, I think, is the Cardinals when it comes to winning World Series. Very, very, very dark moment for them.
It
Oddly enough,
is.
it did not result in them not winning something very soon thereafter, correct?
No, it did not.
So there you go.
No, it did not. Well, wait a minute.
Interesting.
No,
Did
64.
or did
Yeah.
not the Cardinals did not the Cardinals with Gibson defeat the Red Sox in '67? just curious about who was
The
the
well,
1967.
the Cardinals won in '64. They beat the Yankees,
64,
right?
right? Yes.
Yeah.
Who won in
They beat
67?
the Red Sox. They won in '67. They beat the Red Sox, and in
Thank you.
'68 they lost to the Tigers.
Right. So there you go. So that was what I was getting at. Shortly thereafter this trade, the Cardinals, even with a gigantic whoopsie, are somehow able to avoid a curse or something bad like some of these other teams we've explored previous have gone through. But terrible trade. They got nothing in return for it, obviously, and you know, Cubs really suck.
Well, the Cubs are the big loser in this one. The Cardinals
Yeah,
actually,
they
they're
totally
the
lost.
winners.
No, that's true. It's very true.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what I meant to say. Sorry.
All right. Here we go. We're going to move ahead in time just a little bit. 1993, the Dodgers deal Pedro Martinez to the Expos for second baseman. Is Delino or Delino? DeShields. I mean, DeShields was a solid second baseman, but geez, Pedro, God, he's like otherworldly.
Delino DeShields. Give me Pedro's lifetime.
Pedro is like when they say filthy. Now, when this trade was made, he wasn't what we know, what he became later with the Red Sox, but just kind of got better and better. So with the Dodgers, he was because when did they trade him? He was 10-6, so they kind of an unknown at that point. With the Expos, he's 55-33.
Right.
For with not bad, right?
No.
And then for Boston for 7 years. This is ridiculous. 117-37.
Right.
With a 2.52 ERA.
Right.
80 games over 500.
During the steroid era. During the height of the steroid era.
And what is he, a buck
right?
50? Like,
yeah, he's a little guy. He's a little guy with a big competitive spirit. That's what he is.
5'11", 170. I think that's exaggerated.
Well, I'll tell you, Pedro leaving the Expos crushed them. It really wasn't that the final straw for the Expos, to explore the Expos. Didn't they have a young Randy Johnson also?
Yeah.
I mean,
the Expos always had a lot of good players. They were always shipping them out.
Could you imagine if they had kept together Randy Johnson and Pedro Martinez during the 90s? The Expos did exist the entire decade of the 90s still before they could match. What if they had kept those two together somehow?
Yeah. A lot of these things, like these what ifs, are scary. Like you said, what if Frank Robinson still played for the Reds? In that era of the Big Red Machine,
right.
We're talking. That alters the course of baseball history. Same as if Reggie had signed with the Mets. I do believe that would have altered it because Reggie was a winner. Reggie won everywhere.
It's always the smart franchise. Basically, like what I was saying before it got all crossed up in my mind is that in the Cardinals case, the smart team always seems to know what to do. Like they knew that Lou Brock was the guy to get. They somehow were able to fleece him. I mean, we knew that we needed to get Babe Ruth. We were somehow able to fleece it. The Mets got fleeced. The smart teams know what to do. And in this case, wasn't this really more finances though? You know how it goes in the modern day of baseball. I mean, they probably couldn't afford Pedro anyway, right? I mean, one way or the other. They figured they had maximum value at that point. Let's get what we can get, and obviously they didn't get much.
The Expos were a good team that had a lot of great young players, and they kept them until they knew that they couldn't afford them, and then they got rid of them.
Right. They were the Marlins before the Marlins, right?
Correct.
They were the Rays before the Rays. It's
a shame because I want to see a team in Montreal. I like the Expos.
Yeah. Well, you know what though? I don't think it would work. To tell you the truth, I don't think it would work. It might be sexy for a few seasons, but Montreal had a chance to prove that they would back a baseball team. The Expos always had shit attendance.
They did.
For the most part. I wouldn't even try to wedge it there. Baseball's proven, Toronto's proven that that's where they want their baseball.
Right.
Toronto's fine. You know what I mean? They're fine. They have their following.
I'm wondering who's going to take the team here because I don't think the Rays can be sustained in Tampa. It just doesn't seem to work.
Where would they go?
I don't know. Las Vegas, maybe? Or Oakland's going there, right?
Yeah.
They
Yeah,
find a place for him. They find maybe Nashville. Who knows?
I just don't understand why it's not translating in Tampa Bay, because it's a nice city, and they could build a really nice, beautiful ballpark somewhere near where the Buccaneers play. I mean,
Well,
to me,
that's
it's
the
pretty.
thing, though. I mean, the Trop is in a horrible neighborhood in St. Pete that is very
Makes no
hard
sense.
to get to, and
Makes
the
no sense.
proposal is to build another stadium close to the Trop, which is why
No,
duplicate? If you build it next to Ray J, now we're talking.
right.
So I don't know, and they've
It's
been
where
talking about the stadium. Now they're playing at we know they're playing at Steinbrenner right now, right?
they call themselves the Tampa Bay Rays, playing fucking Tampa Bay. Play
Right.
somewhere near or next to where the Buccaneers play. It's the obvious thing. I don't know what's in the immediate area around the Buccaneer Stadium, but clear it up, buy it up, get it taken care of, and get a stadium built there.
I mean, Dale. It's on Dale Mabry Boulevard, which is a pretty busy street in Tampa.
Right,
In Tampa, but you
right.
can't tell me there's not room around there to build a stadium. I refuse to believe that.
Right, and the team, they've only had one pennant, but the team has consistently shown that at any given moment they could come up with a bunch of young kids and be competitive. So it's like,
Yeah, yeah. Good management, good farm system. They just there's just no
yeah,
interest here. Let me.
yeah. Well, a better
Here's a great
stadium
one.
might bring people on a consistent basis to a nice, beautiful new ballpark, and maybe then you can
Yeah.
take the money and spend and turn around and not be the Expos.
No,
You know,
nobody ever. I mean, I never developed a love for the Trop, and if they build another one in the same place, I'd be hard pressed to
right,
to make the trip there. Now, Bucks, Raymond James is like I said, Dale Mabry is a main artery in Tampa, very easy to get to, close to any highway, very just,
right.
driver friendly. The polar opposite of the Trop. Here's one you told me about, Jimmy, on the phone. I forgot
Yeah.
about this one. So, December 7th, 1995, Yankees acquired Tino Martinez, Jeff Nelson, and Jim Messier from the Seattle Mariners, and in return, the M's received Sterling Hitchcock and third baseman Russ Davis. I think that one kind of worked out for us.
Oh, it completely worked out for us. And I remember at the time when that we did it, I thought to myself, wow. Because Tino Martinez was part of the 95 team that had beaten us in the wild card round. Jim Leyritz's famous home run to put us up 2 games to none, and Seattle came back. Tino had been a stud on that team. Comes in and fills Don Mattingly's shoes, and let it not be lost. There was pressure. At first, he was struggling a bit, but then, oh my God, what a season and what a career he had. It wound up with a plaque in Monument Park. But you weren't just getting Tino Martinez in this deal. You weren't just getting a guy who winds up in Monument Park. You were also getting Jeff Nelson, which led to the infamous Nelson to Stanton to Rivera Bridge that had seasons that resulted in, with a lead after 6 innings, 79-2. Things like that, Benny. Crazy shit like that. A ball game was over during the Joe Torre dynasty time after 6 innings for the most part. It was over, and you knew it was over. It was like the most stress-free thing, which is odd considering New York sports is not really typically known for that. So then when all of this was happening, this was so lopsided. Sterling Hitchcock didn't even clear 100 wins in his career, as we discussed on the phone
Right.
earlier this week, which kind of surprised me because I remember him being postseason absolutely clutch. And then you hammered it home when you read me the stats that he, in the rare opportunities he got to be in the postseason, he did help the Padres get there, and he came back with the Yankees years later. But Tino and Nelson were part of a legendary run that we haven't seen in 50 years in this sport. That was the best
Right.
dynasty that had happened
Both with
since
4 rings.
Casey. Yeah, that was crazy what was going on there.
Hitchcock was 34 and 39 for Seattle.
Right,
Not even a 500 pitcher.
right. And Russ Davis had 3 straight seasons where he was okay. He hit like 20 home runs and stuff, but he got injured and his career was over. So he didn't really
He
do
was
much
gone.
either. Yeah, he was gone.
No,
Jeff
I
Jeff
think
Nelson Jeff Nelson was not just a fantastic middle relief setup guy. He was also part of the heart and soul of that club. You remember the big brawl where Benitez drilled Tino in the back, and Nelson and Graham Lloyd ran out from the bullpen and were swinging. Man, you remember that? Those guys, that team. wasn't a dirty team, but they would fight in a second for each other. What a lopsided trade. When it comes to championships, this might be the most impressive example so far of like the direct result being like, part of a dynasty. Because that's what this trade was. This trade was imperative to a dynasty. Without
Yeah, cause
Tino and without
December 95. What happens, from 96 through 99?
I got
2000,
goosebumps right now. I got goosebumps right now thinking about it. It's just like,
Yeah.
it was such an amazing time to watch baseball and to have grown up in New York and your father being from the Bronx to see that stuff. I was like, oh man. So this is what it's like. That's what I thought to myself by the time Bernie squeezed the final out against the Mets, where we had won four out of 5 seasons or whatever. I was like, so this is what it was like for my dad. Because, the Reggie Thurman years were great, but it was back-to-back titles, and that was it. It wasn't the stories you had from your father as a kid about DiMaggio.
It wasn't 49 through 53.
Yeah, it wasn't Reynolds, Rashi, and Lopat, or even when my father was a young boy with Garrick and DiMaggio and Dickey and Red Ruffing and Lefty Gomez. It wasn't any of that stuff. But this team was. This team was. This team won 4 out of 5 years. This team had Jeter and Rivera and all these other guys that are in Monument Park now, and the manager is in the Hall of Fame, and like, oh my God. So yeah, this is so far the best example of what a trade can really do for you if you really hammer it right. And man, did we steal this one. Oh God.
Yeah. Win Yankees. All right. This is going to be, this one kind of flies under the radar. But it is very one-sided. May 29th, 1971, the San Francisco Giants traded emerging slugger George Foster to the Cincinnati Reds for shortstop Frank Duffy and pitcher Vern Geishert. Who? Duffy collects 5 hits and 28 at-bats for the Reds. Geishert never pitches a game for them. Then Foster wins an MVP and leads the Reds to 2 world championships. This is totally one-sided.
What was the reasoning? Was why do you had Foster giving any indication yet that he was already like, what he was going to be in Cincinnati? What was his numbers with San Fran?
But here, well, I'm going to get to my point here in a minute. Let me look up George Foster.
I'm just very curious to see if he was already doing damage. If he's already doing damage.
I do not think so.
Okay,
but I'll tell you in a minute.
Still a stupid trade just on the face of it, no matter what. Just looking at the
in 71 when he got traded. Yeah, he was actually 1358, 241, and 140. I'm sorry. Wait a minute. Nope. No, most of that's with the. No, he didn't do much. He had a couple of cups of coffee in 69 and 70. 71, he only had 105 at bats when he got traded. See, he was an unknown. He was a complete unknown, like a Rolling Stone. But yeah. But I mean, here's the thing, though. You're trading. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, just on the surface of it, why would you trade an outfielder who has the potential to he's obviously showing some power, probably in the minor leagues even more so. Just on the surface, why would you trade that for a fly-by-night shortstop, Frank Duffy? What was this? That guy's lifetime average is probably 220 something. I'll take
I don't know. Literally, 5 hits and 28 bats for the Reds. In his career.
I have no clue. And George Foster.
Well, obviously the Reds don't need him,
right?
The Reds don't need him. They got a guy named Concepcion at shortstop who's going to be a fixture there for how many years?
Who's in the outfield for the Giants? That they feel the need to move a young George Foster. Who's their outfield? You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense to me to make this trade. Foster had an interesting Reds career. He has that one monstrous season. Does he ever have anything quite like that outside of that, though, with the Reds? He does have good seasons. Don't get me wrong.
Well, he won the year of the MVP. He was the year before the MVP in 76. He was 29, 121, and 306. Not bad. Comes in second in the MVP. Then, of course, you got your 52, 149, 320. That's his MVP season, right? But then he follows that up with a 40, 120, and a
So
281 average, comes in fifth in the MVP.
Okay, so he's still smashing them out. Interesting.
Yeah, then he the next 3 years drives in 98, 93, 90 runs, 70, 90. Well, some of that's for the Mets, but no, the guy's very consistent.
Yeah, they goofed up. He had over 300 career home runs, correct?
He was at I think it was 348. 1,239 ribbies, 274
for Frank Duffy.
Frank Duffy.
Wow.
And
why does nobody ever talk about this trade? This trade's horrendous.
This is extremely lopsided.
I do wonder who was in the Giants outfield at the time. What year is this trade made?
71. So what did Bobby Bonds, right?
Right. Who else is out there?
Willie.
Mercer. Willie. Okay, so you got Willie and Bobby Bonds. Who's the third wheel? Forster would have fit very nicely with that.
Let's see. I'm going to find that out. Let's see.
1970.
Yeah, you had Ken Henderson. Remember Ken Henderson?
Yeah,
was the left fielder.
It's not enough. Yeah,
Mays in center.
Forster should be playing over Henderson.
And you have Bobby Bonds, who was Bonds in right.
Right. So they moved him out to continue to let Henderson play. What the fuck is that? That's a whoops.
Right.
That's a
Henderson was only 25. Henderson and Bonds were 25, so they had a young outfielder, and they moved Willie, of course, to the Mets the following season.
That they did. They did. Well, it was the wrong move, obviously.
Yeah, Reds win this one.
Yeah, big time. Oof. What a mess.
Now, this one I think we're going to tee off on.
All right.
June 15th, 1977, the New York Mets trade the franchise, Mr. Met, Tom Terrific, to the Cincinnati Reds in exchange for infielder Doug Flynn, and that's how you see, outfielders Steve Henderson, Dan Norman, and pitcher Pat Zachary. This was known as the Midnight Massacre.
Oh, what a fucking disaster. You know what's more baffling, though? The Reds didn't even get back to the World Series.
Right.
That's baffling to me.
This is a good trivia question. There was one other trade that day. It consisted of two trades. They traded Kingman to the Padres, I believe, for Bobby Valentine. That was the other trade. Same day.
Wow. And he was a terrible ball player too.
They get rid of Seaver and Kong.
Wow. And then they went into the dark ages.
They went into the dumps. What was it?
They went into the dark. They went into the dark
What's
ages where the only thing you could look forward to was Leslie Nielsen's sport coats.
Right.
Yeah, seriously.
That was the M. Donald Grant days, right? I think M stood for moron.
They were horrendous, and that's what wasn't that when Joe Torre was attempting to manage them? Oh my God!
Yes, and Joe Frazier and
what a mess they became. When you remove Tom Seaver, removing Dave Kingman, I don't think was a game breaker. As far as how the Met fans, look, Tom Seaver's Tom Seaver. Interesting fact, though, by the way, Benny, that Kingman was traded the same day. And yes, he was beloved by the New York Met fans. I remember how well loved Dave Kingman was when he was with the Mets. He was still, crafting that career that he was going to have with the low average. But, oh, my God, when he hits one, he goes to another planet.
Kingman was an attraction.
He was an attraction. He was.
You went to go see him take batting practice. I mean, the guy hits shots that NASA tracked. I mean,
yes. It was the kind of home run he would hit. It's you know what? It was that case with Reggie too. Reggie would hit these moon shots.
Was he a good ball player? Yeah, not really.
Dave, no, but was Dave a great home run hitter? Oh my God, yeah. And if you were flicking channels and you see Dave Kingman, you're staying right there. You're not changing the channel. Now, if you see Doug Flynn,
you're sitting down.
I'm looking for anything that's on. I'm looking for anything that's on television. I don't want to look at Doug Flynn. I remember Steve Can Do Hendu.
Right.
Steve Henderson. Yeah, I remember that. I remember Pat Zachary. Hey, I'm the ace on a team that loses 100+ games. I was like, wow, this is
Well, what
really
happened
awful.
was he had a decent season that season. The next season, I think he broke his foot, and that was it.
Yeah, but
He
but
kicked
what were
he
you?
kicked the dugout and broke his foot.
Hmm. What are you expecting when you make a trade like that? None of these guys were really top tier chips. What is this? What kind of fucking trade is
Right.
this? This is
You
stupid.
know, it's really ironic.
You should be
Is
getting
is
back like a pitching prodigy that turns out to be whoever or something. You got back absolutely nothing. And I remember years later, I was at. I know I've told the story before, but I regress on that. Actually, I don't. I was with my dad, and I saw it when Seaver won his 300th game in a White Sox uniform. I was like, my God, this guy. I mean, New York City was like, they loved him in New York. They rooted for him that day. I was confused. I was just a teenager. I was like, Dad, why are the Yankee fans all cheering for Tom Seaver? And he was like, well, he's a Met. He's a great Met. He did a lot of things in this city. I was like, and my father was mad that they were cheering for him. But the second he told me that, I understood. I was like, oh,
he
okay.
was
So I'm seeing history.
beloved. And it's
Yeah,
ironic. Seaver's on the 69 World Champions. He's on the
hmm
73 NL pennant winners. And then
yeah,
in 1986, when the
right,
Mets win again,
right.
where is he? He's in the Red Sox dugout.
Wasn't that his final season?
Yeah, they left him off the postseason roster because
Right.
he was injured. But yeah,
Yeah.
he watched the Mets win in the Red Sox dugout.
Hey,
No,
let's play. Let's play. What if? What if Tom Seaver had somehow been healthy? And I understand he's old at that point and stuff like that. But instead of Calvin Schiraldi, the Red Sox call on Tom Seaver to come out of the bullpen in a crucial situation and get them out of it so they can win the World Series. What do you think happens?
I think the curse is broken a little bit 18 years early, right?
So doesn't that magnify even more that the trading Tom Seaver in 1977 for this has got to be
Right.
one of the worst trades ever, man. Oh my God, what
Yeah.
was this? They really, and the Mets go
Right.
into a complete tailspin.
Yeah, we gotta stop picking on the Mets here. Actually, no, we don't. No, we don't, because we are 16 days away from Bobby Bonilla Day.
Oh
So
boy,
the Mets released
is he
Bonilla in
taking us out? Is he
2000.
taking us out to eat, Benny? Is he going to take us out to
Yeah,
eat, like maybe Zaxby's or something?
yeah, maybe Red Lobster, Golden
Red
Corral. I
Lobster.
don't know.
Oh, look at you, hoping for the best with
Yeah,
Red Lobster. Okay.
Red Lobster. But yeah,
Wow.
they owe. Now here's the thing: when they released him, they owed him $5.9 million, right? But
Okay.
instead of paying him off, they decided to strike a deal with him, and they decided to pay him over 25 years, starting in 2011 with an 8% interest rate. So now 5.9 million turns into 29.8 million, or
Brilliant.
$1,190,000, whatever number you see up there, every July 1st until 2035. The guy's 62 now, has not picked up a bat since 2001, and he's going to be collecting 11 more $1 million checks. 11 every when he's 73, he's still going to get paid.
How would the Mets, who operate a Major League Baseball team in the city of New York, how were the Mets like so pressed for cash that they felt the need to turn 5.9 into this?
Right.
Who made that decision,
I,
by the
I
way? Who was the somebody who clearly
I'm actually
inspired?
listening to an audio book about the Mets when they were
Yeah.
in 77, in the dark days when they traded Seaver, and when they said when they find Zachary $20,000 when he broke his foot, and they
Right.
said that they needed the money. That's why they fined him. I mean, they were cash poor for a long time.
Wow. Wow. Well, they did take a bath in the early '90s when they brought in Vince Coleman and Brett Saberhagen and Bobby Bonilla, and I remember at that point they were trying to buy something and it didn't work for them. The very thing that they criticized the Yankees for all these years, they exemplified why certain teams can do the free agency thing and certain teams can't do the free agency thing. Get back to me in 10 years. We'll see how Soto's contract looks. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think he's finally hitting 250, but I
I'm
mean,
sure he's going to hit. I'm just saying, a 15-year contract, just like the long-term A-Rod contract, you got to know at some point they're going to break down.
right.
In Bobby Bonilla's case, this is just absurd that he gets this much for how many fucking years? Who made this decision? This is ridiculous. And his time with the Mets was awful. What a
Right.
stain in Mets history that this was, when he was like, wipe the smile off my face, that whole "I'll show you the Bronx" stuff, the way he handled the press and the way he handled the fans and everything. And oddly enough, just to stick it to the Mets even further, he goes on to the Marlins and helps them win a title. How's that feel?
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, Bobby Bonilla was a good ball player. He was, but what he was
Oh
asked to
yeah. Of
do,
course he was.
what he was asked to do when he got to the Mets was beat Reggie. Who comes to New York and does what Reggie does? Get out of here.
Reggie does. That's it.
Exactly.
Short list.
Exactly. What was the last time a power hitting free agent floated in here, and did something on a magnitude of that led to championships? The closest thing I could think of someone who came here, but it didn't lead to a championship, was Piazza. Piazza was a great Met. Piazza hit for power. Piazza hit like thunder. He was great. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer, great Met, the 9/11 home run, all the things he did. And it still didn't lead to a championship. Who the fuck is Reggie Jackson? Reggie Jackson is the freak example of someone who
Right.
came to the biggest city in the world with the most pressure and just jettisoned to 2 straight titles and did unbelievable things like, Babe Ruth. Let me hit 3 home runs in one game. Let me do it on all 3 pitches. Nobody had done it since Babe Ruth, and Ruth didn't even hit them on the first pitch.
And he
What was
said such
that?
outrageous shit. I mean, the
Yeah,
things he said.
yeah.
I mean,
But he
they'll
never
name a
once he
candy
never
bar after
once
me.
he never once challenged the press to a fight. I mean, basically, Bobby Bonilla came in here and was like, wanting to beat people up in the locker room because he can't
Right.
handle the pressure.
No, Reggie was about promoting Reggie.
Right,
Reggie knew even back then. Reggie was smart enough to know that Reggie Jackson was not just a ball player. Reggie Jackson
right,
was a brand,
right,
and
right,
he promoted Reggie Jackson, the brand, to the max. I mean,
right.
I'd love to meet the guy, shake his hand, and say, Reggie, as a Yankee fan since 1964, I just want to say thank you for what you
Yeah,
did for my team.
right. Yep.
Because I really
Yeah.
believe that.
Well, he restored the Yankees to greatness. He really did. He was a Hulk Hogan to the Yankees
Right.
when they brought him in the 70s. He was a larger than life personality that was very, very, very magnetic. He had an incredible aura to him. He was brash. He was confident, and he could back it. See, that's the difference. He could back it. You can talk all the shit you want. If you can't back it, then you're just talking shit. And Bobby Bonilla came in here and talked shit and could not rise above. He couldn't do it. And it's incredible to me that he still gets paid this kind of money when I'm sure Reggie Jackson's checks from the New York Yankees have ceased a long time ago. This is
Yeah.
incredibly bad management.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny, but we talked about the Mets a lot tonight, didn't we?
Well, when you've got 2 titles in 60 plus years, I guess you've had your issues. I mean, right now things are going well for them, and that's great. So let's see where it takes them. But in the past, they can't get out of their own way. I do like Cohen as far as his aggressive attitude. I will say that. I
Yeah.
like that he's aggressive. George used to be aggressive. Let's face it, he's the closest thing we've seen to George since he acts more like George than Hal does. You want to know the truth?
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
So we'll see
I
if
mean,
there's a better days ahead for the Met fans. Obviously, right now they got to be enjoying it. But this is just one more example of why the Mets had their long, troubled history. The '90s was a nightmare. Piazza saved them. He's another guy. It's a shame he didn't get a ring. Piazza falls into the Lundqvist category for the Rangers. He falls into the Mattingly category for the Yankees. No ring, but he did save them when he came
yeah.
in. He brought the Mets back to a respectable level. You could look at them as pennant contenders and eventual National League champions when Piazza was there. So he saved their
No,
ass.
I totally agree. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, and if maybe in the baseball bums in 2040, we'll be talking about what a total bust that Soto's contract was, and I do believe it's gonna be a bust. I mean, yeah, he'll be all right for a while, but eventually he's gonna get older. And I mean, Pujols immediately started aging when he went from the Cardinals to the Angels,
right?
And he wasn't that old.
Strange things happen. I mean, Pujols, and Griffey Jr. When he was on the Mariners, oh my God! When he's on the Reds, it's like, is he in the lineup tonight? You know what I mean? So it's happened. It's happened before. It really has. Now I think Soto could probably put up another 7 or 8 really good seasons. He could, sure he could. But do you really think he's going to put up 15 really good
No,
seasons? That's what is it with these contracts? That doesn't make any sense. I would have
and we're
10-year at the most. 10 years I would have offered him. I wasn't even the Yankees. I thought were crazy to even offer him 14 years or whatever, or 15 years, whatever it was. Yeah, it's just no. You don't do that. You don't do that with anybody. You shouldn't do that
I
with
mean, I
anybody.
think they were smart with Aaron Judge, but even his, what was it, 9 years, right?
Right. And how old is he when the contract is over?
I believe he'll be 40 or 41. So it's kind of
40 or
pushing it, though,
41.
right?
Yeah, it is kind of pushing it, but at least it's not till he's like 45 years old.
Right.
It's not that in Soto's case either. But again, 15 years is a long time to think somebody's going to do what they're doing right now. Those are the exceptions. Who the fuck puts up those kind of numbers for 15 straight years? Babe Ruth did it. But look who I just used. That's the one who comes straight to my mind. 1920 to 1934 with the Yankees. That's 15 seasons, by the way. Hey, he did it. Okay, who else did it for that long in one uniform after a trade or after a free agency thing? And I'm struggling. I can't think of that.
No, I mean, like Garrick put those numbers up every year for, a good
Yeah,
14
yeah,
years.
but he wasn't traded for, and he wasn't a free.
No,
Like
no,
we're
he
talking
he
about
was he
Soto
was
being.
he was homegrown. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, did Robinson even after he got to the Orioles put up another 15 years?
No,
Probably not.
six.
No.
6 years. 6 years he was
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah, so there it is.
Yeah. Nope, I
There it
hear.
is.
All right, guys. Well, another great episode of the Baseball Bums in the record books. If you love chatting about the great game of baseball, you are in the right place. And if you're looking for some great wrestling and even some epic non-wrestling content, please hit the like and subscribe button and become a part of the Monty and the Pharaoh family. I have to mention, and Jimmy was a part of it, this epic interview with Val Venus last night, and which a very good professional wrestler that there was no talk that I remember, and I listened to almost all of it. I don't remember professional wrestling even being mentioned.
Right.
It was.
I actually snuck in one question, and Mike was laughing. He pointed it out too. He's like, "How'd you get that in there?"
But you only hear these kind of interviews on this channel. You're not going to hear anything like you heard last night anywhere on social media at all. I will say that with supreme confidence.
No.
And it's a very close-knit family, and I am honored to be a part of it. So, Mr. Pharaoh, would you do the honors and take us home, please?
You've been watching the Baseball Bums, and until next week, later.
See ya.